It's happened again. Someone's pulled the rug out from under you. An empire at your feet, and you've lost it all. Be honest, did you really deserve any of it? More important, what would you do to get it back? Careful, there's always a price to pay. What you decide will ripple across the years. Blood in the gutters and corruption on the wind. It'll be fun watching this unfold. What will you do with the power I've given you? How will you... It's happened again. Someone's pulled the rug out from under you. An empire at your feet, and you've lost it all. Be honest, did you really deserve any of it? More important, what would you do to get it back? Careful, there's always a price to pay. What you decide will ripple across the years. Blood in the gutters and corruption on the wind. It'll be fun watching this unfold. What will you do with the power I've given you? How will you... It's happened again. Someone's pulled the rug out from under you. An empire at your feet, and you've lost it all. Be honest, did you really deserve any of it? More important, what would you do to get it back? Careful, there's always a price to pay. What you decide will ripple across the years. Blood in the gutters and corruption on the wind. It'll be fun watching this unfold. What will you do with the power I've given you? How will you... It's happened again. Someone's pulled the rug out from under you. An empire at your feet, and you've lost it.
Nothing is an accident. Everything is in motion. All of it has led you to this exact second in time.
All right, can I have my special guests this week unmute, as well as my other co-hosts? Hello. Can you guys all hear me? Perfect.
Hello.
All right. Hello, everyone who is in the audience. Welcome to my Game Analysis podcast. I am joined today by Anthony Randazzo and Deanna Boyer, one of which is a professional guest, and the other one is a consumer guest to provide their consumer opinion of the gameplay they're about to be shown. I'm also joined by my co-host, Joseph Jansen, and my other co-host, Xavier Rodriguez. The three of us, the hosts, are VR developers and game artists who at Ringling College of Art and Design. Deanna, our professional guest, is also a VizDev student at Ringling College of Art and Design, and Anthony is a friend of mine from high school. So, sorry about that. I completely blanked.
Damn.
All right, so Today we're going to be playing
That's
Dishonored.
crushing.
Today we're going to be playing Dishonored 2, and I'm going to let Joe kind of summarize the game and what it's about before we jump into some gameplay. And while he's doing that, I'm going to actually set up the kind of stream that we're going to be playing through and the level that we're going to show you guys.
Oh, before I go into the summary, Quinn, can you restream on Discord? Because it looks like we lost connection.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Check that one more time.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm on Discord right now.
Shame. Okay, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. And we are...
All right, we're good.
Yeah, perfect.
Right. We're good? All right, cool. Just in one more second. Gotta reopen. All right, you guys can see everything? We're set?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Joe, go ahead.
Okay, so just to kind of give a brief summary of Dishonored 2 and what it is, it's an action-adventure stealth video game developed by Arcane Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. It is the sequel, obviously, to Dishonored 1, and takes place after Empress Emily Caldwell, who is deposed by the witch Delilah Copperspoon, kind of takes over Dunwall, and the player must choose between playing as either Emily or her royal protector Corvo Tano, who you played as in the previous game, to reclaim the throne. Basically, it's a very overarching narrative where the user is going to be traveling from both Dunwall and to another province known as Karnak to kind of unfold the mystery of how they will stop Delilah, because she has these unique capabilities that prevent her from dying by normal methods. And Dishonored 2 just provides a lot of interesting opportunities for replayability in terms of the powers that the player is able to utilize, as well as the routes they can take completing various missions, whether they do lethal takedowns or non-lethal takedowns. Everything is kind of up to the player's hands and how they want to shape the world of Dishonored at the end of the experience.
Now, just a quick consensus before we really get into the gameplay. I just want to know how many people in this chat have played Dishonored or Dishonored 2, and if you haven't, how much do you know about it?
Xavier, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So for me personally, I have very little experience with either of the Dishonored titles. I have not played either of them, but I had a friend from back home who was like a very big fan, so I've seen like a bit of a gameplay, and just because of my time on the internet, I have a general understanding of kind of the moment-to-moment experience of Dishonored.
Perfect. Now, Deanna, have you played Dishonored 2 or 1?
I have not played either. I don't play very many games, but I enjoy the art of these games, and I did watch a couple videos prior to coming on just so I could see what the art was like. So I'm pretty excited to see the actual gameplay and how it relates to the art.
Now, just to make sure, you can see the gameplay that I'm streaming to you over Discord, right?
Yes.
I can.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Good. And Anthony, how much Dishonored or not at all Dishonored have you played?
So, pretty much I'm at the 9-minute and 47 mark of 107 facts you should know about Dishonored 2. That's the extent of my knowledge.
Sounds great.
I know 48 facts currently on the game.
Hopefully you'll be able to divulge them to the audience if they come up during the stream. As for everyone in the audience, have you played Dishonored 1 or 2? And if you have, let me know in the chat. So.
Oh, Joe, do we know? Did Joe say his experiences with
Oh yeah,
Dishonored?
Joe, get to that, will you?
Yeah, my level of competence with this game pretty much draws back to Quinn, who's played both both the first and the second. I've gone through and replayed the game countless times before, both lethal, non-lethal takedown or story like endings. So I personally enjoy the series and appreciate its value, especially how Quinn does as well.
So from what we can tell, we've got 2 super fans in the chat and then a few other people who have never played it. So I guess we're going to show some people in the chat and in the audience this game. Maybe they'll want to play it. Maybe they'll want to pick it up and take a look at the game design elements and the toys you get to play with. Now that I'm onto that, Joe, what do you think of this weapon wheel we got going on here?
A little bit overwhelming right now. I mean, then again, we're doing in New Game Plus, so
Yeah,
that's probably why.
So we're playing in Mission Plus game mode, which unlocks all the powers, all the attachments for your weapons, and it pretty much upgrades everything to its full capacity. The reason that I chose that for the stream is because I really wanted to show off what this game has to offer. And also, Xavier asked me to see a specific ability that Corvo alone has, but I also wanted to show off some of Emily's abilities as Corvo, so I decided to play the New Game Plus mode so we can kind of really cover everything that needs to be covered. First things first, I'm going to do Xavier a favor and summon the Rat Swarm. So this is actually a really awesome particle effect and kind of dynamic system that is carried over from the original game. Joe, could you go into a little bit more detail about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, the context of reason why it's the rats, because during the first game there was a disease that was kind of like one of the major overarching narrative elements, where it was called the rat plague, and essentially the character was navigating through the rat infested like city streets of Dunwall, and by the end of the game they kind of had like depending on their actions they could resolve the disease by either finding a cure for it or completely making it like catastrophic and 10 times worse than it already was. But it was just kind of one of the unique powers they wanted to tie over with the overwhelming overarching narrative that Arcane was thinking of. And I think again, like in this game, the rat plague really isn't as prominent of a feature because there's the cure now. But they still wanted to keep that element of Corvo's capabilities intact from what he was given by the outsider.
So just to ask everyone in the chat as well as in the audience, if people want to weigh in on that, are we looking at a non-lethal playthrough today, or are we feeling a lethal playthrough? And after we've chosen, Joe, I'd like you to explain what I'm talking about.
Well, perhaps you could divulge what the differences between
this game, the way it encourages replayability is it offers kind of multiple different ways to play, including, whether or not you actually want to use your powers and abilities to kill people, or you want to leave them alive, using simple knockout takedowns, or just sneaking around them all together. Now, the way that this affects the game world is actually really interesting. So, if I was playing a high chaos playthrough, as in I killed a lot of people and I did a lot of bad things, like I'm a naughty boy or something like that, I would see a lot more cynical conversations with characters that aren't trying to kill me, and there would be more bloodfly infestations, which is kind of like a pest in this game, and there's buildings that are overwhelmed by these mosquitoes, essentially, that will eat everyone in their catch, including the player character. So if we were to play a low chaos playthrough, we would see less of those bloodfly infestations. In order to kind of show that off, I did set this stream to have a low chaos playthrough when in this mission plus mode, just to kind of cover that while we're here. Joe, I guess a little bit more about a high chaos versus a low chaos. Do you know how that really affects the ending without getting into too much spoiler territory?
Yeah, so basically, depending on the actions and the body count you drop while you're playing, if you're killing a lot of people, especially even innocent civilians, people are spotting you, and you're just performing really ill deeds, your chaos, basically, it's like your karmas. If you have heard that terminology from the Fallout games, it'll start to stack up, and the game will keep track of it. And the environment will start to change around you, like what you were saying earlier, Quinn. The blood flies will become much more prominent. Disease, illness, and just like overall, like, stuff just gets worse over time, and you see that in the visuals. Whereas you keep it in a low cast, things start to become a bit more positive. However, there's still strife due to the main plot of the narrative. But you get to especially see that in the endings. It shows how your actions have affected the larger narrative as well as the universe, and I think that's a very important reason why these games are always gamers always come back to these type of games, because they want to know what happens and how like their actions can shape it in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huh.
So is this a?
You go.
Okay, I was just gonna ask. So, for the two people that have played this game the most, would you say you play this game more for the gameplay or more for the story?
I would say personally that I play this game for balance of both. I enjoy the story, but my replays of the game were strictly on a gameplay base. I wanted to see like, oh well, the first time I played this game, I played a low chaos. I didn't want to kill anyone. I wasn't feeling overly violent, so I decided to not kill anyone. And the second time I played the game, I killed everyone that got in my way. And I'm gonna be completely honest, I actually enjoyed the low chaos, not killing anyone playthrough more, because I actually felt a little bit better about my actions, and I felt more justified in the quest that I was put on. Is my general opinion. Deanna, do you have a question? I'm noticing that your mic's going up.
Yeah, I'm not in control of that. I don't have any questions. I'm just watching right now. I just really enjoy the setup of the scenes. It's very pleasing to look at.
I think
pretty violent so far for me. Not playing very many video games. But.
Oh, speaking of which, people in the chat, are we going non-lethal or lethal for this specific level? I just need a general yay or nay here.
We can just do a stealth, like try not to get seen, only kill when it's necessary, maybe.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that my friend from home really loved doing with Dishonored is they loved not getting completing the level without getting seen once by anybody.
Okay, I can do that. That's a doable thing.
was-
So basically what I'm doing right now is the way this map is set up is there's a gang war. So on the left we have a enemy faction, on the right we have another enemy faction. If we go into either of their areas, we are going to be treated hostilely. Right now we're in a neutral area, as in we can walk around, be seen, and no one will do anything. We won't get any detections, which is what you guys are talking about. The easiest thing to do here is actually go to the Overseer Outpost and, of course, take one of them and then carry their unconscious body back to the other leader, and they will give you the key that you need to get into the mansion, where our next level is taking place. So you're going to see me use a few specific abilities, as well as kind of use the level design to my advantage to avoid detection. So first things first, I want to point out something really cool when it comes to the mechanics of this game. We have a guy that's about to execute a civilian, and another guy reading him his rights. So in order to get them out of my way so I can get through them... Oh no. Oh no.
Oh.
I ran out of Adamire solution. So what I did is I dominoed them together. So what happened to them essentially is when I knocked out one guy, the other guy got knocked out too, with the domino effect. So that's kind of a really interesting mechanic ability in this game, is you can link characters together, so they will have the same fate when they when they essentially get killed and or knocked out and or attacked by another player. Essentially, you're tying...
Sorry, I just got a quick question here. So is it like a skill tree the way you unlock these things? Or
Yes,
is it
so
just
in the
by-
base game, it is a skill tree. And you unlock runes, and then you can unlock the abilities. I'm just playing in a game mode that has unlocked everything, so we can show them all off. Or most of them off, at least. We only have an hour for this stream.
One more thing too. So from my fun fact video, I also was reading or listening really to that almost everything that you would expect to be interactable with, you can, like those faucets on the sink and stuff like that.
Everything. And it's also used in combat / stealth / pretty much anything. So if I were to throw that guy into this wooden thing, it would break and he would get knocked out and or killed, depending on how hard I threw him. I can pickpocket the wallets off of these guys, as well as the guns, depending on if I can get away with it. And go on, Xavier.
I was gonna say, well, hold on, Quinn. Could you turn around for me, please? I noticed there just happened to be a faucet in the room. If you look over to your left and you continue going forward, I would love to see. I would love to test the hypothesis. Oh, you can. Okay.
I think
There
that
you
might
have it,
actually
people.
draw some attention over here as well. So, maybe it'll wake one of these guys up. It could potentially do something like that, but I'm not actually going to wait around for that because we are on a tight schedule. Now, Deanna, I just want to ask, what your general opinion on is for the kind of the art assets and the colors and lighting kind of using the scene. What kind of emotions do you think it conveys, or do you think it kind of sets a strong scene, or do you think it could be better, and why?
Well, when I first watched the video, I was like trying to figure out what kind of game it was without knowing the story, and I was like, okay, it's some kind of like black magic spy, like I don't really know. That's kind of the vibe I was getting, and now I'm getting a lot more like black magic, specifically with like your weapon abilities, I suppose. But I suppose like for the actual level sets and the design of the game, it's pretty cool. They use a lot of warm colors, which is interesting, but I think they use like a lot of red, which can usually symbolize danger, or fear, or blood is just like a very obvious one, which I think is nice. But they also keep things pretty dark, which makes me kind of relate back to the black magic qualities of the game, and also just the fact that you kind of do want to scoot around and be in the shadows.
Didn't even notice. That's actually really interesting. But yes, so...
Did he detect you?
No, he did not. So the way the detection works is they have that little exclamation point above their head, and it goes from nothing to an outline with white. When the white fills up, it starts to go to a red outline, and if that red outline fills up, and then we see a bunch of little exclamation points, that means that you were detected. So I did clear detection there.
So I have a question. So if you have such a really ornate world, like everything is really well modeled and there's so much to interact with, how much time in the game do you actually have to interact with these things without getting caught or losing or dying or whatever happens whenever you don't do what you're supposed to do?
The missions are not timed. I could take as long as I wanted to with these missions in order to get all of the collectibles, get all of the assets within the system that I want to mess with, or I could set a save point here, and then I could get to the point I need to go using a specific route, and if I don't like that route, I can load back to that point and play it again using a different method. So right now, I'm going to utilize this dust storm to escape without getting detected at all. And I dropped them.
What do you think the benefit of having all these interactions would be if, like, you were to make this first-person game into a VR game? Do you think having more interactions would be confusing in VR versus in just a console or PC game?
That's actually a really great question. First things first, I would change the entire way that we select these abilities. I would also limit the amount of abilities we have. In that case, less is more when it comes to VR, and there are a lot of abilities that I believe would not transfer over to virtual reality very well. I think that, one of the best examples of an ability that is actually already in most VR games is the blink. It's a simple teleport, so fun.
Yeah, and adding on to that, I think one of the things that would translate really well actually into VR about this world is the way that you can already interact with a lot of the items in the world.
Yeah, that's a big rule of VR game design.
Yeah, if you have an item in VR, it should be in some way interactable, because that way the experience feels more immersive and like the user is really in the experience they're playing. So in this title, being able to like do something like turn on the faucet sink would kind of be almost a necessity for us to translate into VR. I'm actually really surprised that they would pay that much attention to detail in this kind of title. I can only imagine how much time they needed to spend making sure everything played a part in gameplay. It's really impressive.
I mean, one thing for certain, these cutscenes wouldn't work. Having the control of the camera like that is an absolute no-no when it comes to VR. We would either have to go into a third-person viewpoint of the characters speaking, or we would have to kind of design the cutscene around the characters interacting. And there's a lot of these style of cutscenes in the game where we're moving the camera around and there's characters talking to us and there's things we're doing. And I would actually say that translates to the viewpoint of the actual in-game interactions. The way we're running around, the way we're walking around, a lot of our abilities take control of the camera. So this game would for sure need to be redesigned from the ground up for VR, and that would take a really long time. Whether or not it would be worth it is really up to how well do you think this game would sell as a VR title, and that's open to everyone in the chat.
I think if you could match the style of this game, like just the quality of the renderings and the attention to detail and all the little things, it could be a pretty cool VR game. But I also feel like that'd be really challenging.
We would have to optimize a lot of things, and there would be a large loss of quality, especially if we're shooting for mobile headsets such as the Quest 2 or the Quest 1, which, if you're going to go for the Quest 2, you should really design for the Quest 1, because that's a majority headset that people own. So, it would never look as good as this on those two headsets, and that's just where the industry is at right now when it comes to standalone headsets. But I could see it looking up to this quality, if not better, on the Vive Index if it were a PC VR title. But I'm not really worried about the assets, because I feel like this art style actually would really mesh well with VR. When it comes to a VR game, I'm not looking for photorealistic graphics and like all of this very realistic stuff. I'm looking at VR to be in kind of a more stylized experience. I wanna go somewhere that I can't go in real life. So I wouldn't make a super photorealistic game of me walking around in the woods in VR, right? I would make a super awesome, fantastic Legend of Zelda style woods, right? And I think that's why this game would be worth turning into a VR title. Joe, I'd love to get your opinion, or Xavier.
Well, here's my opinion on it personally. I feel like this game would be an incredibly successful VR title simply by the fact that I could say it's Dishonored in VR. And now basically anyone that likes Dishonored and that does have a VR headset is going to want to play this title. But the great thing about it, though, is because if it's done well enough, if people give it like good enough reviews in the same way they're already giving the original titles, even people that don't necessarily like the franchise, if they see that if it's translated well enough into VR, it could honestly get the game like a brand new audience that it wouldn't have even had on PC.
We're going to play this mission as Emily with High Chaos, and we're going to keep everything as default. Go through.
Yeah, and more on that, Xavier, too. It seems like a lot of the gameplay, it's not like a run and gun, high octane, like fast-paced game. It seems like a lot of stuff the way he was using the abilities could easily translate over to VR.
Yeah.
Like just slowly targeting like three enemies at once and killing them, like
keep in
stuff
mind,
like that.
Keep in mind something we didn't cover is there is also a very popular assault playstyle to this game where you don't use the stealth mechanics at all and you specifically utilize your powers, your sword, and the other game mechanics and level design aspects to your advantage to literally kill every single person that gets in your way, and you're not worried about detection. So
I think that's
that might be impossible.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, because
I
that's a very fast movement system. I would like to, sorry, just interrupt. I want to draw a little bit of attention. Brogro Singe, thank you for watching. He said a lot of changes would need to be made to the cutscenes like this. So yeah, I actually did cover that a few minutes ago. I don't know if you just joined, but really good note, and I appreciate that. Go on, guys.
I was just gonna say that I think you would definitely have to slow down the gameplay pretty significantly because it looks like this character can walk at like a very fast speed.
I would recommend it falls victim to a lot of other first-person shooter tropes where the character can move at 38 miles per hour and are faster than an F1 race car.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an
But
issue.
in spite of that, I think you could still have both playstyles present in the game. You would just have to be very careful about how you execute it because we've already seen, you look at Esper VR, or I think it was Esper.
I think yes. So Aspire was good because they used time dilation for those moments where you could slow down time.
Yeah. Well, I was saying like it feels like Dishonored could be a combination of Aspire and Blade and Sorcery. Aspire for the more stealthy kind of player,
of course,
that would enjoy this title, and then Blade and Sorcery for the more chaotic, we'll just say chaotic, kind of player of one of these titles.
And I think
if you could,
I think that working in the Aspire mechanic of you being able to actually speak to the in-game NPCs. So like in Aspire, if I sneak up behind someone and I say freeze, they drop their weapon. And they put their hands up. I think that'd be really cool to do in this game, except like, you could do like a whistle to distract them and then move to another location with the blink ability. And there's a lot of gestural based interactions that we would have a lot of fun creating in a VR version of this game. So, like the rat swarm where we raise rats out of the ground with a hands upward gesture animation being replaced by an actual hand gesture would be a really cool way to play this game in VR, I think.
Are there any VR games that are voice activated? Like, could you speak a command?
Yep. So that was what we were just talking about. That's Aspire. So when you play Aspire, you're like a robotic kind of stealth assassin, essentially. And if you sneak up behind an enemy in the game and you aim your gun at them, or you just say the words freeze, they will drop their gun, put their hands up, and then you can knock them out. You can neutralize them a lot easier. That's another game that offers lethal and non-lethal or non-detection playthroughs. So it's actually similar to Dishonored in a way, but I would say it's not even remotely as good, and it's definitely not the best VR game. All right, so this is a really great mechanic, and I want to transition over to it. Deanna, I think you're really going to like this. Joe, I know that you love this, and Anthony, I think you're going to think this is cool too. Xavier, I don't know how you're going to feel. You're weird about video games. So, moving on from that, the timepiece essentially loads us between two separate time periods, and we're going to use that to complete this level. It's going to be a tool that we use to our advantage. You'll also notice that apparently I have access to my powers still. This is going to be interesting. So, normally in this level, they take away all our powers and force us to rely strictly on the ability to transition between time. So now I'm 3 years in the past, and when I transition again, I'm back to the present, which is really cool, but what if I can't see something specific, or how could this mechanic harm me? We also have the ability to look through the glass into the other time period from the time period that we are currently in. So if I see that the coast is clear, now I'm back.
that is such a great game mechanic.
Yeah, I knew
both
you'd
visually
like that.
and in terms of gameplay.
Especially
probably
the
the-
device.
Yeah, this is like the
Made it.
coolest mechanic of the entire title that I've seen. Like the blinking is cool, but this is so unique, and it's such like I don't think I've I don't want to say it, if I've never seen something like this be done before in a game. There have certainly been like similar things in other titles, but the way it's being presented here, I think, is honestly stellar.
I have a random question. Not about the gameplay or the mirror. Why are all the characters' hands so big?
Oh, that's just the style choice. And actually, you'll notice that the male hands and arms are ginormous, but when you look at a female character's, their hands are, I would say normal size. I don't know, Deanna, what do you think?
They're good female size, I guess.
Which is
every male is a Popeye sailor.
Yeah, and every female is normal for some reason, so that's kind of funny.
So another thing too from that video I was reading is they actually hired architects to make sure all their buildings made sense. And then they also made the rooms feel like every room in the game that you go in feels like someone either lived there or like makes sense around the environment.
So that's actually something very common in the game. Pretty much every room building you go into, you're going to see kind of... you'll find notes, you'll find paintings, you can find shrines to the different deities inside of the Dishonored universe. And I think the deities are like the whales or something. I'm not super clear on their...
I would just say that it doesn't look generic. Like, a lot of video games are like, okay, we have a bedroom, so let's put a bed and bedroom furniture in there and then mess it up a little bit. But this, like, each room, you can see who might have lived there and why it makes sense. And then it like gives you story elements to what could have happened there, or what happened to them, which is really nice.
Yeah, the environments of this game are very well thought out and considered.
And sometimes I think it's harder to create an environment that's not messy than one that is, because everything that you put in the room has to have a purpose. So it's cool, and like when you can see the future and the past, and you can compare the two environments to see how they would have changed.
And then again, we're not free from imperfections. Like when you get close to these textures, the sign of a good game artist is the ability to make things look as if they're used and realistic. And one of the easiest, big, I'd say, small risk, high reward things is to add imperfections to your textures and such. So like when we look at the ceiling, we can see, oh crap.
Oh.
Fell under the hole?
I did.
Oh.
So another thing about this level is you have to really be aware of your surroundings and kind of when you're using your time dilation, because it could really screw you over and it can also really help you. So I'm actually going to move on with the level. Apologies about that. I'm going to go down here and check behind me. Maybe this guy will leave. Guess not.
Just watching, waiting.
Yeah, so a lot of this level is also like, really timing when you're jumping between time zones, in order to maximize your ability to not get caught. And now we are good to... And I got out before detection. Nice. And now he's looking around for me, but I disappeared because I literally apparated out of existence in that moment, which is a really cool piece of... Oh look, they're all looking for me.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's fine. They didn't see me though. So, one thing really cool is if you look here, in the past there was a vault door here, but if we're in the present, I can get through. So now I go into this vault, and everything inside is still intact. So I can take all the collectibles and such.
What do you do with those paintings, by the way?
They're just a collectible piece. You get cash for them that you can spend at the black market in the game. So that's where you buy like certain weapons and ammo for your weapons and upgrades for your weapons, which we don't need to worry about because we're playing an upgraded version. And then here we have don't touch the step. Oh, so this is a hint as to how we can get out of this vault and progress with the level. So essentially, what this is saying is, I believe we have to.
I might be able to get around that.
Got it.
Going back into the past.
So now that this statue is broken, transition back, it's no longer there. It's just gone. So that's fine.
I just noticed that there are audio cues for what you should be doing, because like if I was playing this game, I'd have absolutely no idea what I was supposed to be doing. And in VR, for me, I know I play test a lot of your guys' games because I'm really, really good at finding all the things that don't make sense. So in VR, would you utilize audio?
Oh yeah,
cues, or
no,
would you
heavy use of audio cues in pretty much any VR game we make, but especially this one, because we'd have to constantly be notifying the player of where they should be looking or should not be. Like that's how we guide the player. And since we're not in control of the camera, because the camera in VR is actually just a digital recreation of the user's eyes, we have to use other methods to direct their gaze where we want them to look. So one thing would be audio, another thing would be lighting cues, drawing them to specific locations. Like with this room, we have the lamps over there that's guiding them to that desk to pick up the collectibles, and then we have stuff in here that we need to pick up. So there's a note in here, and that light's shining right on it to let us know we should look on that table. So we would use a similar system. One thing, though, that we wouldn't have in VR that is in here is that there's, in some specific levels, not specifically this bedroom, though, there's a lot of vibrant colors. We would actually tone down those colors in VR as to not overwhelm the player, and that would be another way we would use color actually to guide the player as well, along with the audio cues, is we would, a specific place we want them to go or something we want them to look at, we would up the saturation of that specific point of interest in order to draw their gaze to it, instead of.
Well, I think there's also like subtle cues that are pointing the player to where they need to go. Like, for example, all those heads are looking down at the desk, and even the chairs in the room were pointed towards the table. So as an artist, like, I'm aware of those things because that would be my job, would be putting in those things that no one really sees or notices, but when they're not there, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and calling more back to as far as map design in this game as well, I think if it was translated to VR, it'd be something similar, like a reverse process of what they did from Halo Reach to Halo 3, because all they did with maps that they remastered was just make them bigger so that sprint would still make sense. Because that's all Halo 3 is. The exact ratio is still the same of how long it takes to get from one side of the map to the other. And you could easily do that with VR. Like Phasmophobia, I know, has really slow movement, it feels like, if you're just playing on PC, but it makes a ton of sense in VR.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Phasmophobia was that game was built with VR specifically intentioned first, and then ported over to computer later on.
Well, Phasmophobia is an interesting case because it was created for both VR and non-VR players. It was open to everyone. Oh my god.
What happens if you drop something from the past into the future world or vice versa? Does anything happen? Are you able to do that?
What's going on?
I can't recall specifically, but most likely if you were to pick up an item, obviously if you pick up an item you can throw, I don't think that would carry over because that's technically not attached to the character. It would just drop itself, but say if it for the items coins, any other merchandise or other collectibles, those are obviously transfer with you because your character's picking them up, adding them to their inventory.
I don't feel like killing a dog.
But Xavier, we were talking about earlier some of your critiques for the game, and you said
allow me to say it myself. So like I said, I've never played Dishonored 2 before. So before this podcast got started, I decided to watch around 30 minutes of the second game, just so I could get kind of an idea of what the gameplay loop was like, but also a little bit kind of about the narrative, because I don't up to this point I've only seen ever gameplay. I didn't really know what the story was, and I was shocked when I started watching cutscenes of the game by just how fast-paced everything was going. For those who haven't played the game before, the game begins and I believe you're playing as Emily. I think that's the name of the character, and she's going to this ceremony. She sits down, and then this person walks in, and they just announce that oh, I'm actually the ruler. I'm secretly royalty, and no one really questions her on it. She just kind of starts being royalty, and Corvo, the protagonist from the first game, tries to stop her.
She essentially gets betrayed. So
who does?
The Empress and her father, they get betrayed by non-loyalists, right? So it's kind of a classic case of loyalists and revolutionaries, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, I figured that, but my confusion was, one, just how briefly all this was happening. I'm describing it to you guys at a relatively slow speed, but in terms of actual gameplay, this all happens within 5 minutes of itself. So like you're being introduced to these characters, you're being introduced to the setting, you're being introduced to the basic scenario, getting introduced to the betrayal, all in like 5 minutes. And it's just like Corvo himself and Emily as they walk through the levels. It's very fast paced, so it's a little bit it's like a little bit hard to follow. And one of the kind of big issues I had with it was just kind of the performances of some of the actors. Now I'm sure these are fine actors. You know, I have no doubt about that. But I noticed Corvo specifically, he had a very particular way of speaking. He didn't really emote that much, you know, like one of the things that happens early on is a character that I would assume was like a popular character from the previous titles dies, and he finds this person like lying on the ground, like dying near him, and the way he talks to them is the same. Like he conveys his sadness for their death in the same tone he conveys his hatred for, you know, stuff for like a guard betraying him. And I don't know, it doesn't truly convey to me that this person really feels emotions. And it just makes it a bit harder to believe the character.
Well, maybe the argument there would be, is he meant to be a character who expresses a lot of emotion, or is he meant to be kind of a passive character who's a little bit mysterious and you don't really get a good vibe for him? I don't know the game, so I don't know.
I could not answer that. There was like a brief moment of like humor when he was talking with his daughter before like everything kind of hit the fan. So I would assume he's meant to guard his emotion. I assume he's the type of character who guards his emotions but still can have moments of like personality. But if that was how they were communicating the character, I think they went too far into the direction of emotionless, and it just makes his performance sound monotone instead of purposefully guarding himself, you know, how he feels from others.
I think to kind of add on to that, Xavier, because in the previous installment with Dishonored 1, you played as Corvo, but there was no lines for him, and they were only given a slight backstory to who he was. It was just enough information to kind of keep the players guessing, similar to what Halo does with the Master Chief. You know, he's a blank slate, but he has enough backstory information for you to be like, huh, like this guy is pretty cool. But the reason why they do that, I think Arcane did the same approach here, was they wanted the player to feel as if this was them, if they were an assassin, or this like really awesome, like super skilled bodyguard. So I think when they were trying to come up with the approach of doing like, let's do a voice actor for the second game, it came off like you said, you know, it's very stilted voice acting, and there's like weird lines in the script. I think that was just one of the design challenges that they were trying to overcome, but not enough. I don't think they were able to find a perfect solution to get that balance of like, oh, this character is very gruff, or emotionless, so to speak.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's kind of the internal struggle with taking a character, like an audience insert, and having them speak. It's one of the main reasons why Link from The Legend of Zelda doesn't talk. Because once you add in a voice actor, once you add in dialogue, and once you add in personality traits, it immediately creates a disconnect from you and the play and Corvo, because now well, I'm not Corvo, because Corvo is speaking and he's saying things that I'm not saying, or I'm not feeling.
I would say that's why you have to write your characters to be believable and interesting, right? So, you know, there comes a point where, like, okay, well, what do I want to do? And you have to decide that as the designer, and, you know, you have to design around kind of exactly what you want to convey with the story that you're looking to, you know, communicate, right? So
This is to keep you from seeing.
It would be interesting to see a game do like a silent movie kind of vibe, where you're only playing based on like the tempo of the music or sound effects. It'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah, there actually is a game about that called Crypt of the Necro Dancer, which is very interesting. It's a very interesting title.
Yeah, but getting back a bit to what I was saying, I guess basically like how I feel personally about games is if you're gonna have a character be an audience insert, they should stay silent, and everything they do should be something the player does. And if they're going to have lines of dialogue and have a bit more of a defined personality, then they should really go in and flesh out that character and really make them a separate being that the player can kind of gravitate towards, kind of like a Nathan Drake from Uncharted, who, you know, the player controls Nathan Drake, and basically all of the actions during gameplay are actions the player takes. But Nathan Drake has like his own very separate, very well-defined character, and that allows players to, you know, kind of better attach themselves to him, I think, than they can really to Corvo.
Notebook contains.
Well, I guess we can't all be a Nathan Drake, can't we?
I guess not. It is hard to be a Nathan Drake.
But I mean, I think you can applaud Arcane because with this title, there was a lot new ambitious iterations they did in terms of their gameplay design, just like, you know, already improving on the foundation of the rock solid stealth that was existent in the previous game, and just adding new features and making things a lot more intuitive, especially with the progression system. It just made it a lot more streamlined. So like at the end of the day, like, you can't deny the fact that they tried a lot of new ideas or approaches.
Yeah, and also
Yeah,
I
well-
just do have to disagree. I don't think that the voice acting is bad. I think Dishonored has really great voice acting compared to a lot of the other games I've played.
Well, voice acting is a matter of preference, you know. So yeah, I obviously I'm not saying, you know, I am not a voice actor, like a professional voice actor. I don't know what went into the performance. You know, I'm not the best judge. It's just my personal preference on it, you know. But I would have to say that I think, in my opinion, what makes Dishonored great is more in the gameplay and in the design of the world. That's what I think. Like, if I were to say, like, Dishonored's greatest strength is, it is definitely environment design and gameplay. Those are its strongest suits, not the story and the characters. Because the gameplay is very impressive, and the environment design is absolutely phenomenal. I must say, I am deeply impressed by the world they were able to create for Dishonored.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with you right there, Xavier. You know, it's the reason why many of us like go back and play these types of games, especially like Quinn and myself. You know, I think there will be like a few weeks span out of time where we'll just be like, gosh, like we're gonna go back and play a level of this game, or like see like how it is from a different approach. Like, what if I did it high chaos and I didn't get spotted, or low chaos, but I ran away from everyone? Like, kind of get these different approaches to different missions.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally understand. I mean, you got to keep in mind, one of my favorite games is Kingdom Hearts 3, the Kingdom Hearts franchise in general contains some of my favorite games of all time, and the Kingdom Hearts story, I have no problem saying that I think the story is pretty bad for the most part. Like, I am totally a gameplay over story kind of player, so it, like, the story being something I'm not even that interested in would not affect my ability to love this game in the slightest. And this game does look like it would be very fun to play, and I think that's why probably it has such a large following to it.
Overlapping now somehow.
My question is, what playstyle would you run in this game? Would you think yourself of more of a low chaos, undetected user, or high chaos? You know, I'm gonna kill everyone in sight.
Yeah, you know, actually, I'd like everyone in the chat to answer that, especially Deanna, because she's like a kind of person who doesn't like combat in games. So, you know, let's just go down the line.
I would start with Deanna. I'll save my thoughts for last.
I feel like mine's obvious. I would not want to jump on top of someone and stab their throat until they bleed to death. Doesn't sound like a good time to me, but that's just me.
I mean, that's like, I personally prefer the non-lethal playthrough because I feel like I'm outsmarting my enemies. As I would say, though, that the non-lethal playthrough takes a lot more time to get through than a lethal playthrough. Or an assault playthrough is probably the quickest playthrough you'll ever get from the game, right? And it really depends on who's playing it, what they want, what they're looking for, right? And, you know, I think it's really worth playing through a bunch of different kinds of playthroughs, seeing what you like, and then, you know, going back through and trying new routes. I mean, you could play this game probably at least 10 times, and you'd have a different playthrough each time.
I definitely would agree. I'd
Yeah,
say,
so,
I guess... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Xavier.
Oh, no, Joe, don't worry, we'll get to me last. You can go ahead. Don't worry about it.
Well, Joe's played it. He doesn't get to answer.
Well, wait, I'm curious. Like, I don't think Joe actually ever said like which playstyle he prefers.
Oh yeah, actually that is a good point. Apologies, Joe. Go ahead.
No, it's alright. Typically, for me, I've always been the type that wants the good ending or the good resolution for a lot of experiences. So I've always been a sucker for, like, I'm gonna do this without getting detected, without killing anyone. And by the end of my first playthrough of this game, I think it was clocked in at like 42 hours. But thank God they had autosaves in, or where you could do your load saves whenever you wanted. Because I knew I'd screw up somewhere. Someone would see me, or I would accidentally drop a body, and they would die from the impact.
Oh my God. The worst thing ever is when you're trying to hide a body so the other guards won't find it. And let's not say body. Let's say unconscious person, because we didn't kill them. And then
They're
we fall up.
dead.
Well, they're sleep dead. They'll wake up. They won't wake up
That's
within.
not dead.
They won't wake up within the
They
duration
might
of
not
the
wake
level.
up in their body, but they'll wake up.
They'll wake up in the void.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, when you knock someone out, they don't die. They're just unconscious, right? But when you kill someone, they're dead. And there's a really fun ability you can unlock in this game where, like, when you kill someone, if they don't see you first, they'll just phase out of existence. So it makes the playthrough really fast because you don't have to spend time hiding bodies to avoid detection. Or if you play an assault playthrough, you definitely got to invest into the blood fly. So if you fight someone and you best them in combat, they'll turn into a swarm of blood flies that'll attack all their allies coming to kill you. So that's always fun. And we saw that in this playthrough. Anthony, you have not answered the question yet. I would like to hear kind of what playthrough you would choose. You seem to be kind of a neutral evil type of person, so I'd like to get your opinion.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like it'd be obvious, but I'd obviously go with just slaughtering everything in sight and running through the game as fast as humanly possible. But that's just sounds like the most fun. I like that. I like fluid movement in games where you can kind of sprint around and go from enemy to enemy and run levels like it's nothing. I don't know. That's all I got.
I guess
I saw that answer coming. Yeah. Now it's
it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. So one of the big things about me specifically is I'm very into combat-oriented titles. You know, I mentioned earlier Kingdom Hearts is a franchise that I'm really into, but I'm also a big fan of the Devil May Cry games. I really enjoy playing Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro. So for me, combat is very crucial to my enjoyment of a title. And so one of the big issues I have with first-person combat games, such as like Dishonored, or say the Skyrim / Elder Scrolls titles in general, is just that when you slash a sword in Kingdom Hearts, you can tell exactly where you're hitting the enemy because you can see, you know, the main character's body and all of their movement. But when I play, you know, like a first-person title like this, it's very hard to tell where my sword is actually going to hit its target. I can't. You know, the spatial awareness just isn't really there for me. And I think that would kind of come to a big detriment during combat. So I would have to first experiment to see if I enjoy the combat, and if I even want to, you know, if I even want to kill things. Because normally, I would say that the kill everything route would be my route of interest. But if I find that combat isn't really that fun, then I would probably switch over to a, you know, spare everyone run.
I mean, there's also a run that you can go through without having any magic powers. That one I haven't done yet, but I feel like it would be interesting. I feel like it would not be as fun as the other runs I've done, though.
You would be doing it just for the achievement.
Yeah, like that's one of those things you only do for the achievement. I feel like, hey, let's take away half the things that make this game fun, and now play through the entire thing.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the appeal of getting through the game as quickly as possible?
So Deanna, this is this is where the term speedrunning comes up if you've ever heard of it. Joe,
I feel like if I was watching a movie and I was watching it with you guys, you would be like, no, we don't watch it at the normal pace. We have to watch it at 3 times the speed so we can get to the end.
No.
Well,
So
Deanna, if I could, well, I mean,
go ahead, Xavier. If you want to explain speedrunning to our visual artist guest, I am happy to oblige.
Well, I was gonna say, so basically, Deanna, imagine you're watching a film, and you don't really care about the story, but you think the artwork looks really pretty, right? But you've got like a class.
You've got some
30 minutes. You've got classes in 30 minutes, right? So what do? Well, I want to finish the film before I finish class. So instead of watching all the story, instead of like keeping it to normal speed and watching the story I'm not really there for, I'm just gonna fast forward with it so I can look at the pretty visuals because that's what I'm interested in.
And obviously, a speed run, like getting through a game quickly, is something you do usually on your second run once you know where everything is. Pretty much everyone's first run of this game is going to be very slow. It's going to take about 40 hours, and then their second run of the game is going to take max 20, right? You're going to do it in half the time, pretty much no matter what, because A, you know where everything is, and B, you've already seen the story. So now you're in it to see the different gameplay options at your disposal, which is why games designed for replayability, once you're playing it a second time, you're not replaying it for the story. You're replaying it because you enjoyed a lot of the elements of the game design that kept you there in the first place, and now you're coming back to experience them in a completely different way. And that's why games like Dishonored, Resident Evil, and
Kingdom
Hearts are so.
Kingdom Hearts Plus. Dying Light. Another good one.
Exactly, are so good for adding in these reasons to replay. There's different ways to experience the game, and it's the same story, but now you have different gameplay options, right?
So I'd say it plays into that, and there's another side of speedrunning things too, where you almost feel more skillful at whatever game you're playing. If you're not only playing for the story, there's something about beating a game faster than like the average person does, where you feel like it becomes more of your game. Like, oh yeah, I know this game inside and out. Where you feel like you're more knowledgeable, more skilled, and you feel like you get better over time.
There's a whole community, Deanna, built around speedrunning, where some people could like beat this game in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And they'll and that's a demonstration of skill and also just knowledge of the game as well, because where like geometry errors are that you can clip through to beat the game. Speedrunning is insane.
But there's also, I think there's a difference between what we're describing, which is speedrunning, where it's like you play the game as fast as humanly possible, and I think more about what Deanna is suggesting, which is skipping all the story elements and just killing things because you just came to the game to kill things, which is what Anthony would come to Dishonored for,
Yeah. He would come. Yeah. Well, he would come to best people in combat and feel skillful, right?
Yeah.
There'd be another element of that too, where it'd be like, once I play through a game, if there's not some type of like secrets to the game that I can unlock by either doing, killing a bunch of people or finding this random spot where you find something cool you can use in the game, then it does feel kind of pointless to replay games.
So I would like to quickly point out, guys, since we spared the owner of this home, the dust district is now no longer affected by these dust storms, and it's a lot cleaner in the square. And there's actually, civilians now. So we've actually, using the choice we made on that level to spare the owner of the house and allow him to survive, we have let this world kind of repair and clean itself up, and now we have a prettier environment to walk around in on our way out of this level.
Wow, how beautiful. We have 7 minutes left. Do we want to move on?
Well, I mean, those are
VR.
Yeah, we can do the VR discussion.
I know we
already covered parts of it, but if
things,
there's anything else you want to say, now's the time to say it. And also, Anthony, Madison has joined the chat, so if you would like to say hello, you're welcome to.
Hello.
Perfect. Thank you. So, let's get into that VR discussion.
Yeah, so we've already kind of discussed how, obviously, Dishonored, we could not keep Dishonored as it is and still have it be a working VR title, just because while it is a first-person title, so it's already got the perspective down, movement speed is just way too fast for, VR people playing in VR to really handle. The combat is heavily, there's just too... I never thought I would say this as a bad thing, but there's too many options for combat. and that can become a problem in game. Like you look, you look at the scroll wheel. That would not work in VR. You could not have a scroll wheel that big in VR. It would be too much really for users.
Well, I mean, the scroll wheel isn't usually this big. Imagine a fourth of these things on there, and that's what the scroll wheel looks like in a normal game.
I would say focus on, if this was to if we were to convert this to a VR experience, focus on 3 to 4 maybe key, like, identifiable powers that help represent this game's, like, tone and mood, and go with them.
And then cut the ones that don't work, like this really weird one. I feel like this could work, but it would have to be redesigned.
I don't know. I feel like the rat power is the most obvious for me, as like tells me a lot about the world. The Devouring Swarm tells me a lot about the world. The teleport power is already like a pretty common VR mechanic, so that would clearly translate pretty well into VR.
I would say Doppelganger would work, where you spawn a version of yourself to distract enemies.
Yeah, that'd be a very manageable mechanic in VR.
Apparently, you can knock out the clone version of yourself as well, which is really funny.
Interesting.
I didn't know that you could interact with this clone version of yourself, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see your character outside.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well, goodbye, Doppelganger.
Well, I love that that's a thing, though. Whereas if you do throw a character at the edge of the wall, they fly over the top. I don't know why those systems are in place, and like who is the designer that thought, hey, let's add that in. But I'm really glad that they were thinking about that. You know, they were like, this should be something we can interact with, and let's make it happen. And then they did. You know, there's that's the reason you replay it so many times, is there's so many things in the game that you miss on your first playthrough that you have to play it again. And I just have to recommend this game to, obviously designers for, replayability reasons, but also to anyone who's just into playing first-person RPG video games, because this one's just
first-person actions.
Yeah, this one's just fun. There's a lot of systems in place that you can interact with, and it results in a lot of really great moments, I'd say. I've really enjoyed my time with this game, and I think I've sank around 64 hours into it, so... Now, that's rare. Yeah. Mostly, usually I only play like 10 minutes of a game, and I have the idea of what it's like, so it takes a really good game to hold my attention till its completion. Deanna, is there anything you'd like to bring to the VR discussion?
No, I've said everything I need to say.
The game looks good.
Well, Joe, I mean...
Nice.
I mean, honestly, now we can just get on to closing statements. So I would like to let everyone know that Deanna, her portfolio website and her YouTube channel are linked in the description of this video. So if you want to see some sketchbook flip-throughs and kind of the work that Deanna does in visual development, you should definitely go check out her website, and then her YouTube channel has those sketchbook flip-throughs. As for everyone else, are there any closing statements that you want to...
Dave, were you going to say something?
I was just going to ask Joe if you had any closing thoughts on how you felt about like a VR, about a VR Dishonored title.
Well, I guess just to kind of wrap it up, short and sweet here. Make it a condensed experience. Something that can hold the attention of the user for, like what our professionals and our faculty say, somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes.
So you're saying it wouldn't be recreating the full game. We would want to do a vertical slice of the game to really. It'd be like a proof of concept, essentially, like a quick one level. Like, a really good quality VR level with the mechanics that show off VR the best in order to kind of showcase what the game would be like in VR.
Yeah, and I think that could be realistically done amongst a development team, like for proof of concept first, and if the idea has a lot of positive reception, then go ahead and make your full experience if you can.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. So I'd like to thank every single person who watched this stream, and if you know anyone who missed it and you want them to see it, feel free to link them the YouTube video, which is going to be saved directly to my YouTube channel. And if you haven't subscribed to me on YouTube, please do so, because I also have Oculus tutorials for VR development. I do video essays where I kind of go more into depth about certain aspects of game design and game development, and those are pretty interesting videos if I am going to pat myself on the back. And then, you know, you can also check out my ArtStation to see projects that I've worked on with Joe and Xavier, as well as other, you know, VR modeling and asset creation projects that I've worked on in the past. So with that, unless anyone else has something to say.
I have something to say.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
So next week, everybody be here Friday at 6 o'clock my time,
6 o'clock
Central
Central.
time.
I haven't
because it's
picked.
gonna be the greatest podcast yet.
Oh, really?
I hope so.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'd say they get better every week. So, you know, that's a really great closing statement. Thank you, Anthony. We actually have not picked the game that we're going to play next week. So, you know, that's a tentative. You'll probably find out the day it's going live. So, but I just would like to say I appreciate everyone watching, and I'm going to end the stream now. Good night. Oh, I have to alt